Did I turn my mic on? Okay, now I have. Oh my god. Got a new mic today, so
Oh, that looks awesome.
yeah. It's nice, but still getting used to it. So yes, hello Murray.
Hi.
Hope things are coming through on the stream correctly. I think I had all my levels set up properly.
Perfect.
I'm going to put the desktop audio a bit just so you're equal to me. And I'm starting
Yes,
the
you
game
can
up
hear me
now.
okay?
How are you today, Murray?
I'm good. I'm very well. I had a nice day. The weather was nice. It's cold here, but it was a nice bright day in Copenhagen, so I can't complain. Yeah, I was good. How about yours?
Mine was alright. Like the mic I just got, I literally had to go and collect from the UPS collection point because they decided to
Mm.
screw me around a bit. Said it was coming
That's also fun.
yesterday, and then they said it was coming today. But then yesterday I got a UPS, you missed us through the letterbox, so that was
Mm.
fun.
Yeah.
But I guess it was an
But you,
excuse to leave the house for once.
yeah, yeah. You need a little excuses at the moment to kind of go out outside to get fresh air. That's true.
Right, so I'm going to share my screen with you so you can
Thanks,
see
so I
what I'm
can see
doing in
that.
real
Yes.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And there we are. So, tell me a little bit about your role on this game, Murray.
Yeah, sure. So, for Welcome to Elk, I was the art director and co-writer.
Hmm.
So, at the very beginning of the production, there was only the three of us working on it. There was Astrid, who is who was a game director and like producer, and also other co-writer. And it was basically Welcome to Elk was her like brainchild,
Yeah.
and Sam the programmer. So when I was first art directing, I was mainly art directing myself for the first part of the production.
So
But then we
you were
had
on from the start, were you?
for
Hmm.
yes for the very beginning. There was to give some context. Uh, Astrid had this idea for this game for a game like based on these true stories. That's the whole
Mm-hmm.
the
That's the kind
the
of
pillar of it
founding,
is
the guiding
yes,
principle of the game.
yes, exactly. And she had like done a game for BA when she was studying game design. She did
Yeah.
like a previous iteration of Elk is exploring this, and this was something that she wanted to come back to and wanted to make a game based on these stories, which came from her brother originally.
Mm.
So I worked with Triple Topping on Spitkiss, their mobile game,
Yes.
which was really fun. And after working on that, I was interning with them during the end of that production, and these Astrid was like, "Hey, I want to work on Elk. I want to make this game."
Mm.
So she brought me myself, Simon, and her, the three of us. We then made Welcome to Elk. We started that production, the three of us just together. So I've been there with the beginning, working on the art and which then rolled into working on writing with co-writing with the dialogue. So I wrote all the dialogue for all the characters in Elk,
Oh, all of it.
which was really fun. Yes, all
Oh,
dialogue. Yes,
wow. Okay.
it was really fun.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool. I did not know that.
yes, okay. The way so with the co-writing duties, Astrid basically because a lot of the content with the true stories, the real stuff, where that all came from, that was all it originated from originally her brother, but then also her parents and Astrid herself. Basically, their whole family have lived like 10 lifetimes between them each. So
Yeah, that's
they
the next
have
thing I was going to ask. Like, where did
yeah,
those stories come from?
well, yes, from Astrid and the family. So yeah, they just like I mean, already going into it. So when I came onto the project, we're like, okay, when we started on it, we already had like Astrid already had a bunch of like content of stories, which are like these are stories that my brother told to me. These are amazing and powerful, and I want to develop them into like I want to tell them for a game. And
Nice.
so with that in mind, with Astrid picking the stories, she basically made what we called the manuscript, which was the play-by-play of how the game, as we started to develop the world building and how this we would tell these true stories through this island and these characters. And then my job was then to be like, okay, this is like the skeleton of what's happening. I will then flesh them out through dialogue and like through
To
the
fit all
characters,
that
like,
that into like a narrative structure
yes.
within the game, basically. Cool.
Which is really fun because it's a weird way of storytelling because you essentially have we have all these anecdotes. We had these stories, and then it was like, okay, like we have to. So sometimes you'll be like you're usually writing a character, and then you're thinking of things for them to do. While in this instance, we already had what was going to happen, but then it was like, but then fleshing out the characters, and then being like, because obviously in the anecdotes, in the true stories we had, you don't have fully. When the story's told to you, you don't have the fully formed character. So then we had to kind of build a character from backwards from the event, and then find ways to then loop them together and like build it that way. So it was really fun. It was a really fun experience working that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like normally you'd have a skeleton of a story and then kind of flesh it out, but here it's more like you've got like sort of points of a story or like separate things and you may be trying to tie them together narratively to make them fit into like a sort of overall thematically consistent experience.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, which is fun. I mean, like it was interesting. It was interesting working that way because because ultimately the thing that we wanted like would have the power of like those true stories to always be like always be something experienced in the same way that the kind of one of the aims was the way these stories were told to us. And we had a session where we met in a pub, and I met Lauger, Astrid's brother, me, Simon, Astrid, and there. And over drinks, we was kind of like he retold the stories that he told to Astrid or to us, and it was like having that feeling of having those stories told to you. So that was always like a strong pillar that we wanted to stay out through these things. We wanted players while they're playing this game to understand, okay, these are real. Like,
yes.
There's a truth, there's a kernel of truth. The fun part is obviously in repackaging these stories and retelling it, there is a nature of tall tales to it. There's the idea of stories being told, like, if I tell you a story, then you tell it to someone else. There's always that element of your own nuance and your own way of telling it. Like no one will tell the same story the same way.
Kind of a combination of like the idea of an unreliable narrator and like a chain of whispers.
Exactly.
Everyone brings their own baggage to their own iteration of the story.
And of course, with that, like knowing that was obviously an element of us playing with that device. So like actively change, kind of. No, okay, like we're going to tell like this story in particular needs to be told very authentic to how it was told to us because of the nature of it. While this story is a little bit more loose, so we can stretch and like pull this one a little bit more. So there was a lot of like in with that in mind, there was a lot of taking like ethical considerations, and also then in some cases more like how it works in terms of experience, so there was a lot of that kind of consideration taking into account, but it was also part of what made the magic of this game, like because it became this we basically made a home for like these stories to exist in. And then
it's a pretty unique process. Like I've not really known of a game being made this way. You sometimes get you may in like literature get compilations of short stories, but I haven't heard of anyone trying to like basically turn a collection of short stories into a single narrative.
Yes, and it was definitely. It was fun because like me myself, my background was illustration and I've only been working in games for roughly 3 years, like coming up to maybe 3, and so and I'm talking my own personal experience here. I haven't worked on so many like game productions, so it was unique. Everything was unique to me in that sense working in this game. But it was definitely interesting to us because both Astrid and Simon as well come from like they've worked on a lot of game jams experience kind of stuff. So there was definitely a lot of jamming. Astrid said that she calls it with triple topping, like we're like all in a band, and everyone's kind of doing their thing, and like kind of like you're jamming stuff together and working. So the experience was like, and especially when you're a small studio and you're a small team, like everyone's wearing different hats. So there's a lot of kind of just like like being inspired by each other and also being inspired by the source material, and then finding ways to work out together and like how to make something and be like, okay, we have all these parts. How do we make this sit? How does this become one? I mean, yeah, I loved working on it. It was great.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess let's get in. Let's
yes.
Start a new game. Anyone watching? Let us know you're here.
Jeg spurgte ind til Anders, om det var sandt, han var død 3 gange. Anders, han var født og opvokset på en vej, der hedder Pine Road ude i skovene. Og derfra gik han ind til elk hver dag.
So this is actually Lauga, Ash's brother, actually talking there at the beginning.
Yeah, I was thinking, given... Because I think we hear his voice a little more throughout the game.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So here's where I come to a decision. I've kind of set a precedent of doing voices, but when I first played through this game a bit, I found it really hard because there's a lot of characters here and some names I didn't know how to pronounce, and the writing is quite naturalistic, so it's not like everyone had a clear gimmick for me to riff off of, so I struggled a bit. I might, and also if it's you and me, when am I going to be doing voice acting and when am I going to be talking to you? So I might pull it back a little bit on this, but I also feel like I should try. So
yeah, I mean, it's been fun. It's been very fun for me watching. I have seen people like other streamers in videos where people have done the voices, and it's funny because it was something I never realized people would do. But then seeing it's been really, I mean, like whatever you feel comfortable with.
I had a voice for Jeppe here, so I'll at least do him, and I do have a voice in mind for Frigg that I didn't get quite right, but I'll try. Well, here we are, missus. Elk Island. We're finally here! Thank you, Jeppe. Oh, and again, you can just call me Frigg. With pleasure, Mrs. Frigg. So, I just need a moment to get these here supplies off the ship, then I'll show you your way. Howdy, just saw the ferry coming in. Good to see you well, Jeppe. And you must be Frigg. Nice seeing you too, Jan. Right then, guess I'll get cracking on with this cargo. Jan? Ah, it's so nice to finally meet you. My dad's told me so much about you. Nice to meet you, Frigg. Why don't we walk on up and talk? Everyone's waiting at the hermit bar for you. Jeppe, you okay loading everything on the trailer? Ain't no problem, Jan. Oh, but I mean, I'm fine to carry my own bag. Don't you worry, Mrs. Frigg. I'll bring your bag with the shipment I'm carrying. It ain't nothing. Oh, okay, sure. Thanks again, Jeppe. So the first time I tried this, I did not know how Jeppe was pronounced.
No, Jeppe, you've got Jeppe. So,
I know now, because I played enough that we get to the part of the game where his name is spoken out loud. That's the only reason.
Yes. Okay, yes, and then that was the.
Yeah, that's a part of the game.
Yes. I will say, so it's Jan instead of Jan.
Jan, of course.
Yes.
Okay, that's also on me. I should have figured that out.
But you're not like I've seen I've definitely seen other like more like not Nordic or Scandinavian knowing speaking like players play
exactly.
And it happens a lot. Like it also took me a while to get used to.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the fun. It's part of the fun because it makes it feel like a place which isn't, like if you're not from like Denmark or a Scandinavian country and stuff, that then you can still understand the context of okay, this is somewhere.
Yeah, else. It was also funny for me trying to do voices because I'm like, I mean, I'm gonna do like, you know, Brummie accent, a London accent, but I tried it with Jan here, but it's difficult for me to try to do like a Nordic accent of any sort, because then I feel like I'm making fun. But with Jan, it sort of felt right just then, so I lent into it.
But I mean, it's also because, I mean, like, it's funny you mentioned that because, you know, obviously the Triple Topping's based in Copenhagen, but I'm British, I'm Scottish.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Scottish, like, you know, and I'm an English native speaker. So, in me writing a dialogue, for instance, that is very indicative of the fact that the way, like, I've put those voices that, like, I don't know. I mean, I've lived in Denmark, but I've only lived here for 3 years, so I've definitely not tried to kid myself that I can speak authentically in terms of like a Nordic person. So I think there's a mongrel in all the characters in how they speak.
Yes, it feels a little bit like, I mean, because this is Frigg, like, sort of, she's clearly like an outsider coming into this community, but also the community itself, it's a bit patchwork. Like, it feels like a lot of people have sort of found themselves here.
I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Actually, I really like that description, because I mean it is, because, you know, okay, it's somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, but everything is like there is that patchwork quality to it, because it's not so, you know, it's not like you can look in the I could tell you generally, if you show me a map, I can show you. Oh, this is a fun. I don't know if anyone's got this reference.
Oh God, have you got some like production artwork of the map of Elk? Are you saying?
Oh, no. I was just wondering what you were talking the squid there, but
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely. I mean, I got to talk to the squid. Come on, Splatoon Tuesdays gang, represent.
Yes. But we've got like a rough, like, for the world building we had, kind of like, this is where the island would be, and like this can, like, you know, I wrote like a whole history to the island, you know, going back hundreds of years, kind of stuff. So we have that mix of fiction and trying to give it some, like, we wanted it to feel like at the same time that there's a magic to Elk Island, that there is something which feels authentic to it, even though if you can't quite place it, and even though the characters feel slightly, you know, to the unplaceable, but at the same time there's a quality to it which still grounds them.
So Frigg has come to this island. She's kind of apprenticing to Jan in his workshop. He's being shown around. They're going into the Hermit for the celebration, kind of Mr. Nolan. Kind of a significant figure on the island.
Yes, yeah. Well, he was at least, you know, definitely the you can say the patron of Elk in a lot of ways.
I was trying to think of a good term. Not a founding father, but
no. But he like there was definitely an Elk before he arrived, but he definitely had an impact on what Elk is.
Yes.
Or what, like, you know, like at least to some degree of what it is now.
So yeah, this is where me voice acting absolutely panics. Like,
like that's a lot of people.
So I'll spare myself too much. I think I did come up with a good voice for I've forgotten his name already. He's a significant character too. Anders, yes.
Yes.
Can I remember what my voice was for him though? When will Mr. Nolan show up for his party? For the last time, Anders, he's dead. But aren't we all? Hi there! Mum, look at her hair! Shh, Freddie. Hi there, love. You must be Frick. Ingrid said we were getting a new guest. Actually, it's Frigg. But nice to meet you all. Uncle Jeppe is here. I was wondering where you were getting to. Hi there, girls. It's nice to see yous. I'm Mr. Anders. Mrs. Frigg, I dropped your bag off at the house you're staying at. Oh, wow, thank you, Jeppe. Thank you again, Jeppe. Nothing to it, missus. Come here, you. Let me get you a drink. So, yeah, I played enough through to know that Anders, he's definitely someone else who has his impact on the island, but in a different way to Mr. Nolan. I mean, we saw him on the kind of intro, the loading screen almost, but not really a loading screen.
He's interesting because in the development of trying to turn these stories, like, working out how these stories like become attached to characters, kind of stuff that. So the true story of Anders is actually that he was a guy who would go to would like to drink, and he would have his drink in the evening, would be at the bar, and he would walk home. And then on the walk home, that like one time, like a sheriff saw him that he was like passed out on the road, and he thought he was dead because there was no sign of life or anything like that. So they put him in the back of the truck.
Oh, that was Anders. I thought that was
Anders. No, so like there's like, this is where the tall tale, there's like a mixture of stories and things in like this one's also that one's that's a different real, but like, so there's definitely a lot of these stories which overlap with the theme of death.
I remember actually in the story it's Jeppe who finds him.
Yes.
Am I remembering correctly? Yeah.
Or it was Jan finds him, but it's there's with the names as well, there's a lot of coy. But like with Anders, because in the real story, he basically, this happens like several times where he basically wakes up in the truck.
Yes.
And like so when developing the character, thinking to it, like it was kind of like, well, this is this guy who kind of people keep thinking he's dead, and wouldn't it be interesting the fact that this has happened to him so many times, he himself thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
Like the thing, and then playing around with that, he basically became this kind of gateway character to how, like, between the real stories that we were expressing, and also the tall tale, the fiction idea. So he became like a cipher in a way of, like, which he became, it kind of integrated in a special way within the game, because he became the character.
He's like a vehicle for the stories, almost.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's really cool.
So in his personality and stuff, everything that just came out of this, like, kind of like amalgamation, it just became this like fun cipher in a way, which like he just seemed to hold all the magic. So like he's definitely very special to the game.
Yeah, he feels very significant. So yeah, there's a bunch of people here. I don't know how relevant all of them are. This is Ingrid.
Ingrid?
Yes. Morton.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely characters which have who are more key players, and then characters who are more like supporting roles.
Yeah. This guy's kind of slimy, but I kind of like him as well.
Yeah, he's kind of like,
Mr. Nolan's son.
Yes. Especially with the way one of the things when I was thinking about Elk was for community, that you like I know we'll get to the other character later on in like a little bit, but especially that when you have these kind of small communities, you're kind of like, you have like a little bit of everything, and part of it is you have to kind of make that community function.
Yes.
Like, you just, like, in certain situations, there's just like, these are the people who are here, like, we have these kind of personalities, and some way or another we need to kind of just coexist.
Yes.
And like that obviously has like very like sometimes very grating and difficult outcomes, but at the same time, that's just kind of how, like, I think that like there is no utopian community. Like, everyone has, like, their baggage, as it were.
Yeah.
So it was fun trying to like find out. Like, Victor's a good case of like finding someone who kind of brushes up against it in the kind of way of like you say, he's definitely not someone who you would say like, okay, he's a good guy, but he's got, maybe you could have a soft spot for him, even though part of you is telling you to like be wary.
Yeah. Although, I mean, as we will see shortly in this scene, he's far from the worst person you'll meet on Elk.
No. There's
I'll tell you what. We'll see when we get there. But I was surprised that we got thrown into that this early in the game. I knew that like there was some sort of darker themes inherent in the game, but I was like, oh geez, straight away with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the I mean, because the some people have referred to that there's definitely a whiplash in this game, and and part of it, I mean, I think what we tried to do is we tried to lean into it, because I feel like that's how, with the real stories that we were told, and like the way, and the people who told them, and the way they were expressed to us, that was just the way they were also told. Like, one minute people are laughing and the things are joking, and the next minute something horrific happens, and that's just kind of the nature of life as well. That it's not, there's no like usually sometimes a gradual, there's no like kind of middle ground. It's kind of like, things can be great. You can be having a drink with someone, and you're having a great time, and then all of a sudden just like the shit hits the pan, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's naturalistic basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's what we really wanted to feel. I mean, obviously, it's a gaming experience. It creates something which is it's a bit of a roller coaster, but
yeah,
hopefully one that doesn't necessarily throw you off.
So here's Sue. I liked
Yes.
Sue. One thing that's definitely true here is, even though you've got all these sort of disparate characters, you can instantly get an idea of like, okay, that's that one. You can instantly place them into sort of the character archetypes that you'd have in real life. It's like, oh,
Yes.
Sue's the one who's always drunk. She's really nice. I think she comes across very well, but she's also definitely got something of a
drinking issues.
problem.
Absolutely, I mean, like, definitely, and it's one of those things as well. Like, in a small community, kind of like that kind of stuff. It's not to say that I think that that is, people obviously know her problem and stuff like that, but it's also to a certain degree that how do you, like, you have to, like, the whole thing of functioning kind of stuff, that that like it's not necessarily that people are accepting that, hey, everything is good as it can be, but instead it's more a little bit like, well, like, we're functioning.
Yes.
We're getting from day to day,
We're getting by.
and it's not always bad. So therefore, I think that's a good metric for success. But I mean, like, for Sue to me is a fun character. Like, she's fun to write. And I also like writing for Mr. Bo, because he has
Mr. Bo. There's like this real sycophantic quality to him. Like he kind of knows that not everyone really likes him completely, but he's just trying to kind of worm his way into people's hearts anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that he's absolutely core. He's a warm person. Like, he definitely doesn't have anything of a like necessarily a sinister agenda in any way. But I think,
he's not malicious.
No, not at all. But I think there's an attention seeking, a kind of like,
yes, that's the term.
He definitely, like, the idea of validation and the idea of wanting to always be like at the center of it somehow. There's definitely a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And this is the very first mini game.
So, I know somewhat the result of this game, because last time I screwed up a little bit, and it's a drinking game. You drink if you fail, but I want to see if you still end up drunk if you do it perfectly. So I'm going to try to do it perfectly.
I hope you're not disappointed by the answer.
Yeah, I know it's like, it kind of needs to happen what comes afterwards.
It was, at least like,
I screwed up. So
making this game, we made an intentional decision to not have there's no branching like narrative in a sense.
I mean, that just adds so much to what you need to do and what you need to track and how much you need to write.
Well, I mean, like, from a production point, that is definitely, and for another thing as well, because we came to a decision on the idea of, well, we pick these stories and we pick this way of telling it and that kind of stuff, and then if we start like playing around with the idea that there's multiple ways to, like, and one of the biggest important things of a lot of the stories was that there's no, like, these, with the idea of it being a true story, there's no way of changing the outcome of like some of these events tied to a true story, because that would be insincere to the way that, like, if we say, hey, it's a true story, but if you do X, Y, and Z, you can change the outcome, then it suddenly becomes a case of, oh, like, so one of the things we wanted to do more, rather than branching narrative, is focus more on expression. So it's more like, you can't change the outcome, but you can express the moment. rather than change it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense actually.
I think you're doing a really good job. If you
I failed twice, I think.
you feel twice, okay.
Which I think is
often
how
take
much
into
I
attention.
failed the first time, but oh well. Well done me. I do like Frigg's drunk phase, by the way. Oh, so
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
here's the guy I was
Leroy,
referencing
yeah.
earlier. Evening fuckheads. I'm probably going to give myself a sore throat if I do his whole voice, but also it's so fun, so I might just go for it. I don't know how well my mic picked that up, but Mom.
I could hear it.
Yeah, this guy's the bad. This guy is malicious, I think.
He is. He was. I mean, this was. I mean, like with writing, he's a hard character to write for in the sense of that just because he's so vile. Like
Yeah.
there is no redeeming qualities of him whatsoever. And I mean, I think that in there, like there are some people in the world who unfortunately are just like I'm not saying anyone's beyond redemption, that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that there are just some people who are unfortunately who are just like nasty, and he is a very, very nasty man.
Yeah, so quiet there, my pet, or let's not rush things with that pretty mouth of yours. Yeah, so he just goes straight in there with the harassment, and that was the whiplash moment for me. That's like, oh my god, first fucking night, and he's actually sexually harassing Frigg. But I think also like that, like you say, you described it as whiplash, but I think if you're gonna have that in a game, you might as well establish early on, like, this is what you're in for.
Yes, I mean,
we're not holding back here.
Right. No, because I mean, in this, I feel like there's no way to. I mean, like, I mean, that's not true. There is, but at least with the game, the stories we were telling, kind of stuff, there was no way to kind of like gradually build up to it, kind of stuff. That it was kind of like this is the environment they live in. This is where these people live and stuff, and and there is very much a power dynamic, like at least at the moment with Leroy, that when you have someone that volatile, because I mentioned before about the way that they kind of the way they function together, but unfortunately Leroy is the one who is constantly like teetering on the edge of pushing it into like disarray.
Yes.
And it takes and like we can see. I mean, like Sue's the only one here in this instance who's actually standing up for.
I know, like this was like this is like a real selling point moment for Sue. It's like, oh wow, she's a real one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even that, like and the way it's not even like it's completely altruistic. Like this, it comes across like there's a nature to where it's like, okay, like you're doing it for me, but also doing it for yourself, maybe.
Yes,
like,
there is a bit of it's a little bit sort of performative and self-aggrandizing, and but you also sort of really appreciate it in the situation.
Absolutely,
so you're a little torn on how to feel about it.
Yes, but I feel like I feel like that's the thing. Like I think I can safely say in Leroy's case, it's very black and white. Like the guy is dark, like the thing. But in other cases, the other characters, there's more of a kind of like they all have a warmth, but they're all like flawed. Like they're not like perfect people. But one of the things I think working in Welcome to Elk, it was really important to us to really communicate the idea of warmth, because it would be very easy to fall into the idea of farce or like playing too many things for laughs. And I think it was at least I really wanted to that like that all of these characters, for even though there is humor, there is like that there is those lighter moments, but at the same time that it like these characters they all have affection for each other. They all like, even despite all their like baggage kind of stuff, except for that. I mean, when I'm saying this, I'm counting Leroy out, but their sense of community is what keeps them all going, really.
Yeah. I kind of forgot to comment on it in there, but the Spit Kiss arcade machine in there was a nice touch. It's like, this is maybe like more of a programming thing, but like, it looked like Frigg was like set to sort of look at it when you're standing near it, and I've noticed that Frigg's gaze does seem to like change based on stuff you're close to in the environment.
Yes, that's a really nice observation. Yeah, Simon, a game designer and programmer, he did that like just to add like he's really good at adding like little bits of just like he was the one who made the walk cycle. I can't
Yes.
animate. I can, but not very well. So he made the walk cycle and stuff. So he's really good at making these nice touches, at making things pop out. And
Yeah.
the looking at like basically if you're near anything of like interest, like Frigg will kind of like look at it.
Yeah.
In the his paintball, I love putting like Easter eggs. I love just putting like little details. Like there's like old bands that I've been in stuff which are plastered all across the walls and stuff because it's just like
Yes.
One of the great things about making your own world is that you can just basically like live out your fantasies, which you can do in real life. And wow, yeah, this is the walking home game.
Yes.
Did you know about the secret puke button?
The secret what button?
Are you
The
playing on a
puke
controller?
button.
Or are you playing on a controller? Or you're
I'm
playing
on a keyboard.
I wonder how you do on keyboard.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know that.
I mean, I know that it seems like regardless of what you do, Frigg will leave a few little presents around.
Yes, she'll definitely do that. There's also a way to get to controls where you can basically make Frigg puke on command, but it's tricky. You have to press different keys at once.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I have the patience to try every button combination on my keyboard.
No. I think we shouldn't. No.
I'm gonna leave it to trust.
On the keyboard, you might accidentally press the wrong thing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this. And I just want to say I love the music. It's like our audio designer, Andreas Busk. I just love all the music he made for this game. And every I think he just for every opportunity to bring a little bit of character and nuance to it. And like the whole way of like walking home drunk, it just has that it has that kind of like almost like the old cartoons kind of feel to it, that
yes.
Like it makes you think of a Tom and Jerry cartoon or something like that.
Yeah, because I'm a complete nerd and this is my point of reference, this reminds me of the Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy stages in Yoshi's Island. Where you eat like an enemy that makes your character essentially drunk and your controls are screwed up.
Yes. Yes, yeah, but I think that's a good. I mean, it definitely wasn't. I don't think it came up, but now you mention it, I can feel yes, that's a very accurate description.
How do you know how the control screw up is programmed here? Obviously it's not your wheelhouse, but I tried to sort of figure out. It's not consistent.
No, it will be. I couldn't. Unfortunately.
It feels like there's some sort of random or pseudo random.
There'll be something like that. I mean, I could lie to you and stuff, but it honestly wouldn't be true. Simon's probably turning and he's asleep. If you
I've got the art designer here, not the programmer.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there might be some stuff that I know. Not unfortunately, that's one of the ones I don't. This is the.
So this is, I think, the first time we see a Gelk.
Yes.
Please tell me what a Gelk is.
It's like the dumbest. So we in the very early in the production, when we were first prototyping, me and Simon were just putting things together, and Simon was like, "Hey, we didn't have Frigg yet. We had another placeholder character," and he's like, "Hey, can you send me the character the player character to test out in the scene?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I drew a Gelk. Didn't know it was a Gelk yet. So I drew a Gelk and I gave it to him, and he very nonchalantly playing along on the joke, then put it in the game, and then we played along with this character, and then we were like, "Oh, this is," because we knew the game would be Elk Island, and I was like, "It's a Gelk," and then for some reason we thought this was hilarious, so we started putting it into everything, and it's now gone to such a life of its own that myself, Astrid, and Simon all have it tattooed on us.
Oh my god! Wow, that's commitment.
Yeah, I have a Gelk tattoo on my ankle.
That's a bond. I tell you what.
It's my only tattoo, and it's of all the cards I've drawn in my life, For guilt.
It's a fucking guilt, yeah.
I've drawn much better characters, but somehow the guilt's the most fitting that is on my body. So
it's got an undeniable charm.
It does. I mean, it's just like it's become this kind of great thing where any situation that, and like the other artists we have amazing artists. We have Annalise and Karina who have joined our team, and like they now will put when they're designing stuff, they'll just chuck guilts in there. Yeah. And I'm just like, it's just now, it's that kind of monster where it's now out of my hands. Like it's got a life of its own.
That's a meme. You've truly created a meme.
Yes, I mean, which it's a very niche one, but
yeah, but those are still good.
A meme all the same. Who knows? Maybe the Gelk will live on somehow. It's definitely, I can at least divulge we're working on a new product, new game at the moment, and I'm already kind of like putting Gelks in there just because I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yes. So this is the first of our dreams.
Yes.
And these are a recurring thing, and they're quite distinctive. They've got that sort of visual and audio sting that heralds their arrival with the painted background and the stars. And Frigg always finds herself on a boat at the start, I think.
Yes, the boat was quite a fun way of it was like we found some things to kind of help communicate, to have those consistent which you're picking up on, which to kind of go the kind of storytelling devices of going hey, this is something that's gonna happen, or links to something outside the normal world of the thing, the meta world, is it where which ties to the true stories and where and almost directly us as developers. So it was fun because it's a nice. I mean, I'm a big Twin Peaks fan, so so especially with the whole the start, with the background, the whole kind of a transition kind of thing, and that was a big I love the whole way that Twin Peaks will have these kind of transitions in and out of kind of a meta reality and the story world, because the story world in itself in Twin Peaks is already weird, but then you have this extra layer of going, this is something even more. So I mean, obviously we don't go fully we don't go full Twin Peaks, but we have I think it's a nice device.
And I feel like that kind of what just happened there, Frigg's did I say all that last night? She was sort of replaying a twisted Bizarro version of the night at the bar in her dream, and then she's not quite sure. She kind of, she's not sure whether it was real or it was the dream. What things or awkward things did she say for real, and which did she say in the dream? That's kind of feeding into the unreliable narrator, tall tales, distorted stories thing that you were touching on earlier.
Yeah, definitely. There's also a little bit of a bit of a personality, a little bit of social kind of because if you I always feel that whenever you go to a new place as well, you always have that kind of anxiety anyway afterwards of going what did I say? What did I do? This is a fun little this is just a fun way of that's The Sims.
Yeah, I was thinking
a name change to help with but I also like the name. Was it build something very dumb, but I mean it was a way of trying to
build a house, talk, eat, kiss and die.
Kiss and die game. Yes, not quite as catchy. But this was a way we were trying to find ways to kind of flesh it a little bit of because Frigg's she's very much an avatar kind of character, a kind of surrogate for the player audience, but we still wanted to find a way to give nuggets of our own personality and life back home. At the same time, all these kind of things have the acorn is an Easter egg to Daisy, my partner, who loves picking up natural things from the outside and giving them to me as gifts. I have a windowsill full of acorns in
Do you mean pine
cones and leaves?
Yeah.
What's it say?
Oh, both. Okay.
Yes.
Because what Frigg has is a pine cone, but you said acorn.
Sure, yes, that's true. Two mix in my head, but yeah, she has a pine cone. Yes, yeah. But in my head, I have so many. They're one and the same there.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
getting a little bit of consequence there, consequential.
Yeah.
You can't just puke and think you're gonna get away with it.
I don't think this painting was coloured last time we saw it.
No, so like it's the way we do it because you couldn't interact with it before, but now you can.
Oh yeah,
so,
I was going to say that. Like, I was really pleased that everything you can interact with is coloured.
Yes.
It's like it's a really like it's almost like a stupid like dumb shit way of indicating it, but God, I appreciate it.
I'm glad because I mean yes, because I mean I the amount of games I play and it's especially like adventure like in narrative ones where like I'll kind of like instinctively just spam A on everything.
Yes.
Like I'll just out of there's a high school club.
Yeah, high school club logo.
Yes. Yeah,
get your pin,
yeah.
get your HSC badge today, guys. And yeah, it's full of beer. This is a recurring theme in this game.
Yes.
We will find
like,
many
it's
things
just,
filled with beer.
Yes. Like alcohol. I mean, alcohol is definitely a how would you describe it? A symptom of many of like some of the tragedies that befall some of the characters, so definitely, and I think it's fair. Like, it's a fair observation to say that there's a lot of drinking in this game, and I think we definitely don't we don't challenge it in what you would call a direct sense. Like, there's no like
You're not like moralizing about it.
No, because I think it's not right for us to do that. But at the same time, I think you could easily you could drum up like your own conclusions of going. Some of these people drink, and there is very real consequences to that drinking. So I think you could like you could work that out yourself and be like, okay.
I don't think I even found this one last time. Oh my god.
Yes. Yeah, that one's a subtle one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I mean, the thing is the drinking thing, not to stereotype, but it feels fitting for a small community. Like, what do people who live in a small rural community have to do for fun apart from drink and have sex? Like,
I mean, it is. I mean, definitely. I mean, like more from my Scottish. I mean, I couldn't speak for. I can only speak from what I know from a Scottish point of view. But there's definitely small Scottish communities and towns and stuff that is very much like that is the. I love that little.
Game Boy.
But that game. So that Game Boy is that's a reference to the original game that Astrid made for a student project. So that's just a little homage to that there, where it's like, hey, there was another. But yeah, definitely, I definitely know stories of small Scottish towns within the family and that kind of stuff that where there is that kind of sense of weird mix of and I mean, again, I'm definitely not trying to claim that this is the case in all cases. There is no there is no like one way that people work or communities work, but I could definitely at least think of you're working at the the vending machine spits out quite a few different
and they're persistent from the previous night.
Yes,
like, I got that hand and that nose out. I think it's a nose. Oh no, it's a little dude.
That it's supposed to be a spit kisser, but it's very hard to
that's
work
what
out.
It is.
It kind of like managed to like somehow like stay in, even though no one knows what it is. But like it's one of those ones where I know what it is, so I get enjoyment out of it, even though most people are going like, "What is that?"
Some references are just for you, and that's fine.
Yes.
Anyway, I gotta go to Ian's workshop.
Yes. So I think you might understand, like, because I know you played more of the game.
Yeah.
That Jan's workshop in the carpentry to me is basically like from The Simpsons, the fireworks factory.
Okay.
The Poochie episode. Like, the idea that Milhouse is like, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory? And you never quite, with the carpentry, you never quite actually get there.
Yes.
Always every day it's always like, we're going to do the carpentry. Like,
yeah, but then something else comes up. It's like, oh, maybe it's not a good idea today. And I was thinking to myself, like, damn, is she ever going to get to do any carpentry?
No. It's kind of like a subtle ongoing joke throughout the game where after a while you're like, hang on, we're never going to get there, are we? There's always an interruption. There's always something. Clara. Clara's a really fun character, right? She's just, you know, that always has some kind of like something's up her nose.
Yeah. She's got this kind of cynical edge to her.
Yes.
But it's also kind of endearing. It's like you can relate to it. It's like,
yes.
yeah, I can see where you get a hint of the kind of life she's led that's led her to that outlook.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Nothing comes from nothing.
Yes, exactly. Why does Frigg's go-to cuss seem to be crapper? Like, where does that come from?
That's another one. I mean, there's a lot of swearing in Elk.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was actually really good feedback. It was from my brother. It was from my brother Fraser, where I think I got him to play one of the first vertical slices we made from it, and it was good. You know, but he said they all swear the same.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And I was thinking, yeah, because people don't swear the same. So then it was kind of trying to think out, like, what are other people's kind of, like, you know, swear words? And like for me, like Frigg, like, she's not, you know, she is going to use the relatively, like, you know, your main swear words when the occasion takes it. But otherwise, you know, she's not going to like always cuss like that strongly. And like crapper, and like it's another one that my partner Daisy does. She would be like, you know, crappers are kind of like, you know, or in the middle kind of thing. And I thought that's quite good because it's quite cute, and it's you know it's
a little bit mild.
Yes, but it has a very, like, it's not something you hear very often. It's got a kind of particular charm to it, which, you know, and I thought, like, well, Frigg's the only one, like, she's from outside, she's not in this community, so she's the only one who's going to kind of use this thing crapper, which no one else is going to, like, you know, everyone else, you know, they don't mince their words. So it also became a way of, like, you know, distinguishing between the two. But now, yeah, so no crapper today, Frigg.
Like, so the voice that I imagine for Frigg is Catherine Unger's voice. I think I'm not sure if you know Catherine Unger. She's an SFB Games like main.
No, I know. I don't know her personally.
You know,
I definitely
her,
know her.
yeah.
I know her. I know her work because I'm a very big fan of their work.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear that. That's that I'll definitely, if we were meeting in person, I'll definitely now have that in my head.
Yeah, because it's like it's a bit South London.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
A bit like a little bit innocent. That's like it feeds in. Like that's why crapper feels like fitting.
Yes, it has an element of like a innocence. That's very true.
I do also like how Frigg's expression will change for the mood. This was something that like in the sort of last game I played on stream, which was Hive Swap, which is like an adventure game of a slightly different flavor that also has like the character's expression will change depending on the situation. That's just a nice little touch. Oh yeah, and of course it's Anders who was in the bushes.
Anders who just said hiding in the bush, as you do. But the expressions was definitely, that was something really important for me in the thing, like, you know, that you can do because it is a dialogue heavy game.
Yes.
So you like it was amazing to go through, because the way the process was that, like, from the writing, that I would write first, like after I started writing with the manuscript, the skeleton, I would then do a draft of the script, like, almost like a film script, like, you know, going through, like, you know. And we use Yarn Spinner. That's a little bit of a tech how we do it, which is a really nice plugin with Unity. And the way that Simon managed to set it up was that I could basically go in and put in the script, and then for the facial expressions, we would use emojis. So you basically like he managed to make the emojis be like signified to the faces that I had drawn, and it was a really fun way.
That's awesome, actually.
It was great. It was so, because then you realise how much the facial expression can really change, and it would be funny going into it and then, like, you know, try and test and go, you know, that face isn't actually quite right. It should be this face, you know. You like, rather than, like, you know, this, like, you know, change, and it all be by the change of an emoji would change the facial expression on that particular, you know, dialogue. And it's amazing how much, like, you know, I mean, obviously, like everything plays its part. Everything has its strength. But for me, like the subtle change of a face can really could really do a lot of heavy lifting. You know, to really change the yeah. So I'm glad you feel that. I'm glad you like the faces.
We've got a tall tale possibly from Anders.
Yes. It's definitely yes, it's
Is this where we see? Is this us seeing some actual Murray Somerwolff animation, or is this all programmatic as well?
No. I mean, what happens is I sometimes like what will happen is I will sometimes give it out first.
Yeah.
Like I'll do it, and then so I'll give that to Simon first to be like I'll show you the thing. Like, Simon's got a nice eye, so I think there's definitely something. I mean, the squid is definitely a Murray.
Yes.
But I usually trust Simon like with some element of like he's got a really good eye for animation. So I'll kind of like first give him a very rough like prototype. Like I have a whole host of like rough like a. That's a
Murray Somerwolff original.
That's a Murray. But I usually try like Simon gets some kind of rough cut from me, and then he'll be like, okay, let me put this in Unity and actually make it smooth, and I'll be like, that's fair. I will say we actually get some nice animations, or at least some like touched by like Anne Louise, who was hired like near the back end of the production, but she's an animator and she's got a great hand with it. So it was always funny because when the time it came to production, because of the consistency of the game, I had to almost tell her you can't do too good animation at this point, because if you do stuff that's too nice,
it makes the rest of it look
out.
Yeah, exactly that.
So what you know, it's always an interesting direction to give to someone. Yeah, you know, like if you could not be your best self, then that would be great. But I mean, yeah, it worked out. But for next, she's no always barred for the next production, so that's also going to be really fun to see. Having you know like a
removing the limiters.
From the very beginning of a production as opposed to the end. Yeah. This is Anders Katie's home, which has a particular charm, and of course Cumben, who is just like the best rabbit.
Yeah, God, he's huge, but great.
he is big.
So yeah, he mentioned to the little kid Freddie, I think, in the bar that they were going to be drawing parents. This is what he meant.
Yes, this is exactly what he meant. Yes. Which you know, it's fun. It's fun, like, you know, taking the talking from a game design point of view, how to take story ideas and then think, okay, how to turn that particular story idea. How can we express that through gameplay? And I will say that these pictures are the.
These are the Triple Topping crew, right?
Yes. My eye and nose are definitely there at least.
So I know I had some logic when I did this first time, but I'm going to apply different logic this time. So I give him like a big like hearty nose. If his dad is going to be beautiful like a famous singer, let's give him some pretty eyes. So I think these are quite nice. And this mouth speaks to me.
It speaks to me. It's a very nice happy smile.
I'm nuts for that, like the squidge on the seal. It's so it's really like physically pleasing.
Yes, like, but it's working stuff like that is like so fun, and just kind of like how you can make something so easily satisfying is yes. So I like a mission accomplished in that one, but like, I mean it's It's funny. It's also funny how I thought it was the seal of approval. I thought that I was so original with that, and I found out that like
Everyone's done that joke.
Everyone's done that joke.
I remember like Nintendo official magazine in the 90s. Their mascot was the Nintendo. It was the Nintendo seal of approval.
Well, when you realize that sometimes not being original is also a good sign.
Every joke has already been told. Every story has already been told.
Yeah, and only, yeah. So, yeah, perfect. And a bit of persistence there as well.
Well, thanks to you.
Yeah, those are nice faces. Those. I would be proud to have them as parents.
Of course, we go back to the drinking.
Yes, of course. Well, the hermit. Like, I mean, I always feel like a community is only ever like a good group of friends is only as strong as they're a pub that they go to.
Yeah, I guess so. So whose dog is this?
This is hot dog. This is Nifflis. Nifflis is didn't work on.
Wait, Nifflis is in the Nifflis, like of
yes,
knit
the
and knit
Nifflis.
Stories.
Yes, Nifflis. Yes.
Oh wow!
Who's making Inglet?
Yes.
Which is
I've been seeing that.
Which Topping is helping make not helping make. Sorry, like that. Nifflis is definitely a one-man army in terms of his game design. But we're helping him. We're helping him bring Inglet to the world. And it is an amazing game. And he is an absolute. His talents know no bounds.
From the Nifflis games I've played, like I played Knit and Knit Stories, and also the one where you're a bouncing ball. I forget what the name is, but his games are all really tight on game feel.
No, like, he's a genius.
The feeling of jumping and running, interacting with platforms and stuff is just like absolutely airtight.
It's just like, I mean, I wouldn't use genius. I wouldn't use it like so. It's not something I use so often. But England is the game that he's been working on now. It's so good. Like everything about the game feel, the music, and it's all him. It's all like, I mean, he's got a friend Sarah who helped with the art, but then otherwise everything is just like him. He made his own music engine, which you use it, and just the way he generates the art. So. Yes, in fact, we have a nice reference to his game, another kind of homage later, which is Mr. Bo's house. But yeah, it's very very honoured to have met him and also to see his process. Yeah. And now
This is the second mini game, I guess.
Yes, with the singing one, which. It's funny. It was a great, like another example of just a fun way of playing with expression as a form of it was really important to us that skill. There was never a point where you felt that with the stories the way they're being expressed that you felt that especially the idea of a fail state, because that it's not fun to play through a story and then feel like, oh, I have to redo that because I failed.
Yeah. And
also because we wanted it to be accessible, so we wanted people to like never feel frustrated to experience one of the stories in this game.
It's just not that kind of game where you can lose. Like you can't die, No. Oh well, I mean, unless you're talking to Anders, but
So I'm just quickly English now.
No worries. This is also like, it's almost like kind of giving you a chance to bond with characters in sequence, because before it was Sue with the dancing.
And now this Beth, the singing. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So activities definitely bring people together, and it's also a nice way of learning something about a character as well, being able to
Exactly.
experience that gameplay with them. And it was really fun to it's really fun being able to allow players to feel like they're adding something to this world as much as they're experiencing it and or having it being told to them.
You really just put Gelks everywhere.
This one was me having fun because I was kind of like, okay, it's a karaoke.
Yeah.
There's gonna be girls, like there's no holds barred, like I have this resource, let's. And these are all fun. These are Murray animations. These are all fun Murray.
Yeah, this is unfiltered Somerwolff.
Yes, I like that. That'll be on my gravestone. Unfiltered Somerwolff. That was great. Very nice performance there, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I'm a veteran DDR player, so this is in my blood.
Yeah, you have this. I would say this is I think the one opportunity here to talk to Larry the Fishhead, which I think is the only piece of dialogue which is retained through the whole entire process.
Oh, really?
Because I wrote a bunch of stupid fish puns, and then I was just like, and there's never any reason to not have them there, in my own personal opinion, of course. So yeah, it's still there. there's not really much explanation to why there's talking fish head, but
I mean, what do you mean? It's like every community's got their talking fish head, right?
I mean, personally, that's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like if you're once you have your talking fish heads, you've made it.
Exactly. That's how you've really got a community going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I meant to ask. Like when I was doing voices last time, it occurred to me partway through that Bobby and her partner are they meant to be American?
There is Americanisms. So yeah, I mean, in some way, yes. I don't want at least Bobby.
Like this phrase here, like night hands, sounds very like sort of American South.
No, it's definitely intentional. Yeah, so in the idea of it, is that the people have come from all over and ended up getting up Brewster, and then that is and so there is definitely Americanisms in it, which is intentional, and the idea that there's some of the language is picked up from that in the same way there is Scandinavian and Nordic kind of mixes of language, and also in some way there is also a little bit of British in there as well. So yeah, there's when I was mentioning before of the idea of mongrel of language, I think that it's not to say that Bobby is American, but there is definitely somewhere in her ancestry people would have come from America, and also that way of language would have been diluted into their vocabulary,
maybe passed through some
yes
way.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is I was thinking God, did I miss the chance to talk to Larry before? But no, this is where you do it.
This is your golden opportunity.
And I like how she just knows him.
Yeah.
There was no introduction. She's like, oh, it's Larry, the talking fish head, of course.
My kind of justification is that it's Frigg having fun with herself, and that in the way that you kind of talk to an inanimate object and you kind of give them life. That's it. That's the if someone pointed a gun against my head and you're like, how does this make sense in this world? That's the way I would describe it. But I also like that it's ambiguous, so you don't know.
Oh wow! Apparently, I didn't look at this last time. I got an achievement.
Oh, you got an achievement? Yes. This is Astrid's famous, Astrid's. She one of her kind of character traits is how much she loves hot dogs. And of course, in a fun way. This is a recipe which she stands by.
I'll tell you what, this is really funny because this week I have been eating hot dogs because I had a craving over the weekend, so I just went, bought a pack of hot dogs, some buns, some ketchup, and some onions, just been having myself some hot dogs. I haven't been doing them this elaborately though.
nice.
I just throw the dog in a frying pan and fry it up a bit.
Okay.
That's good enough for
well,
me.
I will say that we've had people actually who have seen this, then went away and made it, and have actually, like, you know, sent pictures and also then said, wow, actually, this was great.
It looks good. I mean, I just screenshot it because I'm going to try this.
I feel kind of like, is it like blasphemy to say that I haven't actually tried it yet? But I have tried hot dogs after it has made, like, you know, so herself. So I feel like, you know, I'm lucky in that sense. I can actually try it by the maestro themselves. So
Joe says, glass of water straight down the gullet, the true way to hot dog. I think he's referencing speed eating.
I think that's also another way that, yes, I could. But oh, hi Joe, by the way. I feel we should say hi.
Yeah, Joe's hanging out in the chat.
It's fun that he's here. Yeah, I think that is the true way to hot dog. I can't argue with that.
I mean, I have respect for anyone who just does it dry. Just inhale the thing straight down.
Oh, remember those tins of, you know, you get those tins of hot dogs. I think it's like, you know, that's.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get them in jars, tins, packs.
Yes, but I just remember there's something very British. I definitely remember those. I can't remember the brand. There was this brand of hot dogs you could just get that every so often my mum would buy, and I'd just be like it's kind of like a guilty pleasure because you know it's not, you know, they're not necessarily healthy, but you're also like,
they're not good, but they're so
yes.
good. Every bite I would take of a hot dog is just like, God, that smoky flavor. Mm-hmm. Absolutely great. So I think we have like a candid conversation with Beth here. I think this is the conversation where we learn the nature of her and Yeppa's relationship, which is actually like, I mean, due to things that happen in the story, which I won't spoil right now, it's kind of touching.
Yes, it's because, I mean, and this is part of, like, you know, this is a way of not shying away from the story we were told. This was the truth of the storyteller, of the because obviously the names have all been changed, but Beth's story, the way that the character and like some of the, especially her like the story, like the story when you find out about her husband George, and you find out the true origin of everything that happened there. I don't know if you've played that far, if you got to that point, but when making the character attached to this, you know, like, and, you know, and I think it was like, okay, well, this was the truth of that character. Well, let's find a way to let you know. It's there is, you know, and Beth has had a hard character, but, you know, a hard life.
Yeah.
In some way that she's definitely been through the ringer, but at the same time, it was really important to us, again, bringing that back to the idea of warmth, but definitely not the idea, but like, Beth is a strong character, and there's definitely no shame in the way that she lives her life, or the relationships, the way that she has. Like, it's just a simple way of being. So, her relationship with Frigg, and the way that they communicate, and the way that comes across, was also important to kind of like create that getting all my words mixed up, tongue-tied, to create that connection, you know, to have, and allow these opportunities to have these moments where there is that kind of like touching, or the intimacy. I think that's a good word for it. Like, there is, you create that intimacy between the two of them.
Yeah. So yeah, the squirrel stew.
Yes, because that was also part of the part of the yes. There are elements which are attached to the idea of tall tales. There's some things which we've stretched, and some things which are quite actually literal, at least in the way that it was told to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, but no, I like Beth. I like that, like, you know, that she's
like very sympathetically portrayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like, because I like that. I like that there's a fire to her. You know, that it's not overwhelming, but there's just something to her where you're just like, this is someone who, like, she is not, like, forever how many times that she has things that, you know, what life throws at her, she will always kind of, like, you know, get back up. Especially because of her daughter, like, you know, that's
yes.
Yes.
Freddy.
And Freddy's also fun because Freddy is the name of Astrid's first child, a daughter. So there's loads of like everything has almost an Easter egg or a reference to it in this game.
Oh, so this
Even
sequence is really interesting. So because like
Mhm.
Frigg is dreaming here that Freddy is saying, "Oh, I'm going to go meet my daddy," and obviously with Anders here, we know what that means, and we're not
Yes.
yet quite sure whether like how much this reflects reality, whether Freddy actually believes Anders' tall tales of, "Oh, we're all dead, and my parents are dead, and we're going to make balloons of my parents," and
Yes.
like. Again, I can't quite remember. You did say like you're not sure how far forward I've played to know about the whole George situation. I can't
Yes.
quite remember either. I remember other parts. I think I might have got to that bit.
It's the end of chapter 3. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's kind of like
Oh, is that the one where
leading
you
up.
go to Beth's house and make a trap?
No, so that's like halfway through. It's basically it's a flashback the way the old comes about.
Yeah, I
Beth.
definitely didn't get that far then. Yeah.
I think it's one of the if I was saying my kind of my advertising kind of buzzword, but it's one of the set pieces of the game. I think it's one. So I think if you have that, which was why I am also being careful not to spoil it, because I think when you experience that bit, it's definitely it was one of the things we used actually in very early on in our set a demo that it was a demo.
Oh,
It was
the
a kind
like
of a mix.
first tales or something.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That was exactly what it is. Yes,
Yeah.
and we took that when we took that to like when physical events were still a thing and not stories that we told our children to scare them at night. That was what we took. We took to like EGX and Gamescom and GDC and stuff, and it was really fun to see people's reaction to it. 'Cause it was the kind of thing people were like, this whole set piece that I'm referring to was what but I'm saying this now because then maybe it will come back to you when you play it. Because I don't think we'll get there tonight.
No, unlikely.
But it was the thing which really sold the premise of the game, where people were like, okay, like, right, this is where the power of these stories and everything lies in with bringing it into a gaming experience.
So here we see the first of these. Oh, there are two. Were there two the first time I did this?
Yes, there's always two here
Okay.
to begin with because
Oh,
of
yes.
because of the references. So it's kind of a way of like referencing two stories which have already been kind of told prior to this.
These are kind of like reframings of things that we saw or heard or experienced.
It's like the extra layer of it because this is basically these are the way the stories were told to us.
Oh, like word for word.
So, that's also where they're still more or less because obviously they've been written in a way to make it like flow.
They're like edited.
Right? Because so it's edited, yes. So with a rough edit, but but these are more in keeping with the idea that for instance, names will kind of like repeat or like connect to the characters in the game, but also like there's continuity mistakes, that kind of stuff, because these are more authentically linked to reality.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if you follow this, people will rightly be a little bit like you start to get like tongue tied or a little bit like with the overlaps kind of stuff, and that's the whole idea of it, because storytelling is at the heart of the game, and then how we tell stories, that kind of stuff, and then there is that confusion or like when you have two people and like if we're both telling the story and you're like, oh, say that bit, and I'm like, oh yeah, that bit, like and this happened, and you get that weird kind of confusion and build up. So, but also the reason of these bottle stories is so it's to give you the other like flavor of that nuance, but it's also to then kind of create a link to, hey, but this is like the story, like this. We expressed it in the game one way, but then also this is how it was told to us. This is like the actual true story, as it were. And then we also have the other layer, which is the videos.
Yes. I know where those start.
Sorry.
I know where we get the first video. That's a hard one to forget.
Yes. Yeah. So that one especially, yeah. And that's like Ashton's dad, who that he was a guy actually who experienced, so that's the whole thing when him telling it from himself. That's a whole crazy thing of where then you can escape from the reality of going, wow, that's the person who actually experienced this telling it to me. Okay.
I think I am going to read these out loud, I think, because I think that's a nice thing to do for people on stream. Sue, George, and the bikers. It was before George went to prison, when Sue and him was still young. They were each other's best friends, and siblings too. The two of them would spend most days hanging together at the Hermit Bar. They did not have much else to do, other than drink and play cards with the rest of the people there. Sue and George looked tough and would sometimes get themselves into trouble, not because they wanted to, but because getting by in life meant sometimes doing things that would result in local police attention. In general, they were good people, helpful to their friends, and George was even a bit of a romantic. If they were ever fighting, it would only be with each other, when really drunk, and mostly because of playing darts. In those situations, their friends would stay away and leave them to it, because both were strong and fearless when fighting, and no one wanted to get caught in their crossfire. One day, a group of bikers arrived at the Hermit Bar. The bikers made a lot of noise when parking. You could hear they were drunk, and people at the bar instantly got the feeling that the bikers weren't there to make any friends. The mood at the bar immediately shifted when the bikers entered. Everyone tried to make themselves look invisible. No one was in doubt that the bikers were there looking for a good fight. And no one at the Hermit Bar thought fighting the bikers would be particularly fun. Sue and George did not take much notice of the bikers. They continued their card game, which clearly provoked them. One of the bikers tipped over one of the guests' beer, so it smashed against the wooden floor with a loud crash and splash. Sue and George stood up from their table, and all the bikers started walking towards them, of course, with the boss in front. The guests at the bar started to liven up a bit, excited to see what Sue and George would now do. The biker boss picked up a bottle and tossed it from hand to hand, inviting Sue and George to take the next step. "Be careful," George said. "I think he might well hit you with that bottle, Sue." Sue quickly also grabbed a bottle from the bar, looked at George and said, "I wonder if that would hurt." And then, without blinking, Sue smashed the bottle against her own head, shattering it, whiskey running down her face, smiling. Nope, didn't feel a thing. The biker boss silently put his bottle back on the table, and one by one, the bikers all sheepishly left the Hermit Bar. So that's very close to what happened with Sue the first night. I love the energy of that.
Yeah, and it's true because it's some of these things where you're just like, so some of these ones like from Lauga who he as his brother went traveling and stuff like that. So he met all these communities and stayed there. He actually went away to learn carpentry by a guy. He wasn't called Jan, but like a Jan figure. Yes. And he came back, coming out these stories these people in this biker battle, this is a thing that happened. The idea that a biker riding it, someone is smashing a glass in their head and being like, you know what?
Yeah, I'm not screwing with that.
Yeah.
So this is
in a cinematic quality.
So this one's the When Anders Died story, and this is what you were touching on earlier. So I'm going to read this one as well. When Anders died. Anders lived up in the woods in the trailer that his parents had left his sister Beth and him. Each day he would walk through the woods to the Hermit Bar where they opened around 12 noon. He would stay until the bar closed, and before going back home he would buy himself some more beers for the walk. Sometimes if he felt the night was still young when the bar closed, he would walk to Jan's trailer, no matter how late at night it was, and he would call Jan. Jan, come out and have a beer with me. Often this would only wake up Jan's wife Ingrid, but she would then wake up Jan. Jan, Anders is here, go have a beer with him. Jan would then step out of bed and bring his own beers outside the trailer. Anders only drank Budweiser, and Jan would prefer Tuborg. They would drink a few beers and look at the night until Jan would be too tired and go back to bed. Jan never minded getting up in the middle of the night to drink beers with Anders. Guests were always welcome. One day, when Anders was walking home from Jan's, being a bit more drunk than usual, he passed out next to the road. This had happened before. Normally, he would wake up when either the sun made the sleep too warm, or when the alcohol would leave his blood and he would start to feel the cold in winter. He would get up, then he would continue his walk home, getting ready for the next day. This time, when the sun came up, Anders did not wake up. He continued to lay next to the road, not moving at all. A few cars passed by. They didn't pay any attention, as they had seen Anders sleeping next to the road before. But when the sheriff drove past Anders for the second time that day, he got suspicious and stepped out of the car to check if Anders maybe needed a ride home, or to the bar. However, no matter how hard the sheriff tried, he could not wake up Anders, and he also could not find a pulse. So, with sadness, the sheriff realised that Anders was not sleeping this time. He picked Anders up and put him in the back seat of the car. The drive to the morgue was quite long, and it was starting to get dark. It was not the first time the sheriff drove one of his citizens like this to the morgue. They were all good people up here, but tough lives and the heavy use of alcohol often made them leave the woods this way. The sheriff was in his own thoughts when he heard a noise from the back seat. "Where the fuck am I?" said Anders with a rusty, thin voice. Then he sat up. The sheriff had been sure Anders had left this world and was quite surprised, but he turned the car around, offered Anders a beer from the glove compartment, and drove Anders home, relieved that Anders was in fact still alive. Years later, the sheriff passed by the same spot next to the road. Anders was again lying there sleeping. The sheriff paid no attention, even after the second time he passed by, remembering the time Anders suddenly woke up in his car. But when he saw the body still lying there the day after, the sheriff stopped and stepped out. Anders was cold, there was no pulse, and the sheriff could not wake him up. He was still suspicious, so he called the doctor to come visit. The doctor arrived, and the sheriff asked him to check if Anders was dead before he would embark on the long drive up to the morgue. The doctor checked Anders, and there was no doubt. Anders was dead. The two men lifted Anders into the back seat of the car, and the sheriff started the car and drove towards the morgue. When he was almost there, a noise from the back seat broke through the music on the radio, and Anders sat up. "Where the fuck am I?" The sheriff was shocked and almost lost control of the car before he came to his senses and offered Anders a beer, apologised, and drove him home. Anders and his sister Beth were sitting at the Hermit Bar. It was a quiet day. The summer heat had caused the other customers to stay home, so it was only the two of them there. The bartender had gone home and left them the key. Maybe it was the beers, maybe the heat, but suddenly Anders fell from his chair and lay silently on the floor. Beth stepped down to help him, but Anders did not wake up. Beth knew her brother very well, and she was in no doubt her dear brother was dead. Beth was a bit worried, as she had paid for all the beers they had that morning. Anders would always pay her back, and he was the only person she would lend money for beer. She trusted him. She needed the money back. She was always low on money. Life's hard sometimes. Beth looked around the bar. All was still silent, and no one was around. She reached for the pocket in Anders' vest, but there were no coins, only his checkbook. She took it, went around the bar counter to find a pen, and looked over the bar once just to be sure Anders was still dead. She then wrote a check from Anders to herself, just enough to cover a few months of rent and a nice funeral for her brother. She then checked one extra time that Anders was still dead, and left the Hermit Bar to get Jan and the sheriff. All three of them drove Anders to the morgue. There was silence in the car all the way there. Not even Anders was talking. Beth made sure to tell Jan and the sheriff that her brother had even left her some money in case he should pass away, always looking after his dear sister. Everyone knew that losing Anders was tough on Beth. The siblings had always been close. So I noticed there was a paragraph missing, and I think I had this the first time round as well. Is that because I missed bits of dialogue?
Is it? Can you...
Hang on. I'll go back in.
Hey, go back. Yes.
Yeah, paragraph 9.
You mean where it has the
three
three
stars?
star?
I think, is that one missing, or is that just a divider?
It's a divider. It's basically trying to be like time, like.
Oh, so it's a time skip.
Kind of
Okay.
like, so it's just like, so it's, yeah.
Okay, that makes
But I can
sense.
understand
Actually,
why that could be misleading, to be honest. So, but no.
the squishing animation on the Gilk in the
Yes.
water ring is just as good as the seal, by the way.
I'm glad you think so. Yeah, that was, yes.
Super important to me.
Yes, but I love the squishy making things like, I'm really into making things which, trying to make things which aren't expensive to
Yes.
production, but making things which are like satisfying, which just give you like if anything makes you want, I want to keep pressing this, then I'm like, job done.
It's like
That's
tactile.
Yes, that's a very good word for it. Yeah, I love making things that are tactile.
Yeah.
One of definitely from a production point of view, one of the things which definitely like I will not do again is doing seasons.
Yeah.
And then going, oh, we have every asset in this. Everything has to have snow now, and I'm like, yeah. Which, you know, is when we do a 2D thing, you're like, obviously we are not doing anything with shaders or anything like smart. It's kind of like, no, everything's just drawn, so you have to just draw snow.
Yeah. I mean, how on Tangled Tower, I remember because there's a point in the game where it's now nighttime, and I remember just like Adam and Catherine just wrestling with the prospect of, well, do we just darken all the backgrounds for it to be night, or does Catherine repaint them?
Yeah, you have to like make a whole new thing. Yes, yeah. It's a great because when you have to make those kind of decisions, because like, especially when you're first, you're like, just do something. I mean, the funny thing for me was that the snow. It was fine, but it was also the idea that you'd think drawing snow is easy, but actually it could be a pain.
It's like one of those things where, obviously, unless you live in a part of the world where you never see it, everyone like instinctively knows what snow looks like and what it feels like, and if you get it wrong, it's really obvious.
Well, that's kind of the thing, right? Because then it was one point in drawing it, I was kind of looking at some of the stuff, going, "Oh, that snow doesn't look right," and then you're kind of then you get into this whole thing of like, snow, what is it? What is it? Like, and then obviously within your like. And then because you have to like then work out like, okay, this is the way this world looks and works. How does snow work and look in this world? And then you're like, and then on all different objects and stuff. So I'm really pleased with it. I think it's fun. It's a fun like device to use to have like something to change the environment. I think it does something to the story and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the next year working on, I'm definitely trying to push for not having different seasons.
Yeah.
Is my own personal wish list. I'm like, let's not do that. Just do it in a world where there is no like. It's always the same thing.
Yeah. There's no seasons. The planet doesn't revolve around its star. It's a geocentric orbit.
And the world building is just like there's magic that just makes it so. That's just the case. See, I guess it's one of the parts where it gets quite heavy again. And it's interesting. I mean, talking again the game design. So when we were first dealing with this storyline, like we had like quite, you could imagine, quite silly kind of game mechanics in mind. Like at the very beginning of the initial, we're starting out like you could do this, you could do that, and then it was actually for talking. We're going, well, no, like we shouldn't. That shouldn't be the case. Like for game design and stuff, that they should always be in service to the emotional state of like what it should be. It shouldn't, like you can't have a hard bit of narrative and then suddenly go, okay, now we're just gonna like completely undermine that by making you like, I don't know, have a gun and shoot things for like 5 minutes.
So I know which way I'm meant to be going, but I'm deliberately going the other way because I just want to see. I mean, you had to draw all this shit covered in snow, Murray.
So I worked in the production team, and then we had like an artist called Dennis, who's really fantastic. He worked with us for a while, and he did like some of the set pieces. He did the inside of Jan's workshop. He did the ferry, and he did so I would do these like horrible little sketches, and then he would make them into something which looked awesome. And he also made Mr. Bow's house, which was great. And then in the end of the project, we had another 2 artists who joined us. John talking who kind of helped just tie things up like in different ways, like some of the objects around and stuff. And then my job is I was still drawing things as well. And then with the snow, I would do a snow check and go around and make sure all the snow parts were like consistent enough. Yeah. So.
Someone had to draw all that stuff, so I had to make sure someone looked at it.
Yes, yeah. But for a good part of the production, I was the only artist on it, which was kind of nuts. So that was an interesting experience.
I mean, at the very least, Elk is a relatively small island.
Yes, definitely. I mean, in the beginning of the production, we were like, we're gonna have this like island, and it's gonna be open world, and you're gonna go everywhere. And then it was suddenly like, no.
You got to pull the scope back.
Yeah. Where it's just, I mean, it's also interesting because it's actually really fun. I really like the part of game design, like the development where you actually make decisions to like do hard cuts.
Yes.
Then it forces you to really look at things and go, what is actually important? Like, what isn't? What in terms of the experience? Like, does it add anything to like be able to walk into another area which doesn't do anything? And it's like, well, no. And then it's like, okay, we can just lose that. Obviously, like if you can do fun stuff or cool stuff, then it's cool. Sorry, I know where to say.
Yeah, I kind of got to this bit quicker than I expected.
Yes, the tone is a bit different now. Yeah.
Yeah, Frigg really gets a crash course in like, yeah, this is the full spectrum of what happens on Elk. So yeah, no, again for me, getting here, I was like, oh wow, okay. And the fact that it's Yeppe, and like, you know, last night we had this conversation, this very frank conversation with Beth.
Yeah. And also like Yeppe to me, like it's not like he's huge, but like the first character you meet when you get to the island, and he has this kind of like, even though you don't get so much dialogue from him, he has this kind of like presence in a way which I think is like, you know, he's like a very like calming and very like, you know, like he's a nice presence. So the fact that he's like, he dies, I think to me is like sad, like, you know, because it really feels the impact of like, oh, okay, like he's gone. That's it's changing the status quo in that way. So
there's sort of like his place in the community. There's like, it's sort of, this is maybe not like the best word, but it's almost mundane. Like he's one of those very ordinary people. He's not like a Mr. Bow. Or anything like that. He's not like a spectacular figure. He's just one of those really like down to earth, like, oh yeah, that's Yeppe. That, you know, it's just like one of those very ordinary people.
Someone who you'd expect to always be there.
Yes,
and
yes,
then
that's
when
it.
He's not, yeah.
That's exactly what I was going for. You never like, he's not the person you'd expect this to happen to.
Exactly. I mean, and so writing this, I mean, it's interesting trying to like hit the right tone with this kind of stuff, that because the end, like we're always just trying to service the idea of like just trying to not overdo it, you know, just try to be like, because people on like, if you're living in an island like this, you know, like, with like harsh conditions, it's not like you're a stranger to death, but at the same time, like the familiarity about it is what makes it so kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like as close to a mini game as you can really allow for a situation like this.
Yeah, because it was really.
You need to have some kind of like tactile interaction with the situation, but you can't gamify it too much.
No. Because I think, and I mean, for me, the most like this bit here is the most like, the real success, because by having to close the eyes and like having that thing, it just gives that little bit of physicality, like tactileness, where you're like, okay, like just enough to kind of make it feel like a real thing. Yes. And then at this point, when it's just like then that kind of trying to create like an abstract, like you know, like to just try and create the kind of motive of like what is it like to like be this person like carrying someone, you know, that's like you would just be staring down, you would just be like transfixed. It's
like very fitting that, I mean, all you do here is hold up, and you're doing this. It's like a weirdly long amount of time, but that's completely appropriate, because like this is the kind of, I mean, I've thankfully never had to carry the frozen body of someone I know. But I imagine it's the kind of thing that either feels like it takes no time at all because you dissociate, or it feels like it takes forever.
Definitely. I mean, it's like, you know, like it's just I mean, because time is one of the interesting things you mentioned there, where it's like you have to create the time. Because you're already balancing that thing at the same time. If things like drag too much, then people kind of lose, you lose momentum or you lose immersion. At the same time, you want to create the idea of like if it was just too sudden, you lose the idea of the feeling of actual consequence.
Yes.
So it's
It needs to feel real.
Yes. I mean, and it was a hard thing, because it's the tricky thing of working with this material. Because like, knowing it when you're working with it, sometimes even for us as developers, you can create a distance between yourself because you're like, oh, writing this thing and that kind of stuff. And then when you go back to the material and you can realize, okay, but this was real. This was a real
Yeah.
thing that happened, and stuff then it forces you to then also go like, okay, like I need to keep that in mind. I need to make sure that like feeling is there in it, that it doesn't like gloss over the idea of the reality of like
Yeah.
what happened.
You've got to do it justice.
Yes, or at least it'll definitely do our best to do
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's why it was important to have a character like Freak, who is generally like is a protagonist who is like empathetic and also like able to emote, because like I think she is used as as a surrogate for that. Like with this stuff happening, you need to have some outlet. They can't just be a complete Gordon Freeman where they don't have any
Yeah.
emotions. So it was really important to have someone who you can feel like, okay, you're expressing how I feel right now.
Yeah. So yeah, this surprised me, but I understand now why this happens.
Yes.
Jamen, jeg vil fortælle historien om dengang, jeg fandt en mand, som var frosset ihjel. Det er mange år siden. Jeg var ung tømrer og havde taget arbejde op i en lille by langt nord herfra. Og jeg kan tydeligt huske, det var en mandag morgen, hvor min makker Jeppe og jeg, vi mødtes som sædvanligt og tog vores lille ladbil ud til værkstedet, som var den sidste bygning ud mod ødemarken. Og vi gjorde det sædvanlige. Om mandagen, der ryddede vi altid op på værkstederne og kørte affaldet over på dumpen, som jo egentlig bare er en losseplads, hvor man graver et stort hul i jorden og smider alle affald ned og dækker det til igen. På vejen hjem er det så småt begyndt at blive lyst. Og da vi kører over broen på smeltevandshælden, så opdager Jeppe, som jo var langsynet, at der var en lille bil, der var kørt ned af børnenes kælkebakke, og der lå en mand på jorden udenfor, eller i isen. Og vi skynder os at køre derhen og løber op ad bakken. Vi tror, at ulykken lige er sket. Og så vender vi manden om, og så får vi et chok, fordi at hans øjne, de er sådan karakeleret lidt som knust glas. Han har 2 sådan røde hugtænder ud af munden, fordi han har slået munden, og det har blødt. Det er så frosset, fordi det var meget koldt den nat. Det frøs 38 grader. Og samtidig var hans skjorte stod sådan åben. Han var rigtig dårligt klædt på. Og så vi rev noget af hans maveskin af, da vi vendte ham om. Det var simpelthen frosset fast i isen. Vi var meget chokeret og forskrækket, og Jeppe sagde, at han er færdig, ham der, han er død. Vi skyndte os at ringe efter en lægeambulance, og derefter satte vi os ind i kaffestuen i vores håndværkerbarak, som vi lå lige ved siden af, for lige at sunde os lidt. Ambulancen kom ret hurtigt efter, og lægen undersøgte manden, og de kørte væk med ham. Og lægen kommer så ind til os i kaffestuen og skiller os ud, fordi vi ikke havde prøvet at yde førstehjælp til ham, og vi skulle med det samme undersøgt, om han var lændestiv, fordi så kunne det være, at man kunne redde ham. Det anede vi ikke noget om, og vi blev kede af, at vi måske havde svigtet en, som kunne reddes. Senere der ringede lægen dog så efter nogle timer til os og undskyldte. De havde undersøgt ham og undersøgt sagen, og det viser sig, at det var en person, som det var den sidste aften, han skulle være i byen, så ville han rejse derfra, han ville holde. Og han har derfor været sammen med sine venner om aftenen før og drukket temmelig meget alkohol. Alligevel var han kørt hjem i sin lille bil og kører op på sådan et plateau, hvor der er parkeringsplads. Man kommer til at køre for langt frem i sin brænder der og rusher ned af børnenes kælkebakke, og bilen sætter sig fast. og så går han ud af bilen og falder. Og på grund af den stærke kulde, dårlig påklædning og hans dårlige kondition og hans meget høje alkoholprocent, så sagde lægen, der ville gået 5-10 minutter, så ville han være bevidstløs, og kort efter ville han dø. Så vi kunne ikke have gjort noget under alle omstændigheder. Det er en historie, jeg engang imellem tænker på, også selvom jeg sidder her i dag en sommerdag, og så tænker på, at dengang der var det altså 40 grader koldere end det, jeg sidder i nu. Så ja.
So, like you said, that was Ingrid's dad?
That's Astrid's dad.
Astrid,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. So Jan, like he was
Oh, so he's the Jan figure.
He's yes. Well, so more like metaphoric. Like Jan is the name of like, Astrid's dad's called Jan, although the Jan in the game isn't based on him in any way, and that's why there was a different character there with the hat, like which is based on Jan who took in the video to there. Like so, they're very different, but at the same time, there's all that kind of like mixing of meta like narrative, which makes it purposely like confusing.
Yeah, because in the story that we were just told then, Jeppe wasn't the guy who froze to death. He was the guy who found the guy. But
yes. So there's that element of it which makes it kind of it's confusing to that degree. But the important thing is definitely the idea of like that you learn that like regardless of the understanding the relationship that's Astrid's dad, that this is someone who's there, who's telling you this story directly to you, going like, hey, I was there. That was me. I found this, and like especially the bit where he talks about the icicles, like that bit always like
yeah, that's
me the way they put it. Like it's
that kind of like very specific detail that is inconsequential, but you're never gonna forget it.
Yes, exactly. And it's what to me always makes it like it hits it home that it's a real story, because you don't like,
you don't know that would happen unless you've seen it.
Or at least it's something sometimes like small details make like if it'd been me, I don't think I would have thought to if I was writing this, I don't like from fiction, I don't think I would have thought of that. But like it's the kind of thing that because it's based on like because it really happened, it's a little detail which makes you think this is like that actually happened. Like you don't just make that up. Yeah, but it's it is like what we're going for. Okay, it's like there's some stories which are like it will make you laugh, and then there's some which are just like they're like tragic, but it has a meaning to it, but it's just at the same time like it still has like tragic overtones.
Yeah. And it's like kind of funny but fitting that like she's just basically witnessed someone's death, and then she's like, the thing that's really hard is that I don't have phone reception.
Yeah,
but that's also kind of real.
Yes, because you can't really deal with the with the thing, like you end up like zoning in the little things.
Yeah.
Rather because like that's just how you get through, like
Yes, it's like a coping mechanism.
Yes, exactly.
So I think I'm gonna read this and then call it a night, because we're coming up to 10. 2 hours is a good amount of time. And I presume you have responsibilities where I don't.
No, but it's also it's a nice cap to like to play through to that point, like Frozen Man, and then like I think it's a nice encapsulation of the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
So yeah, this is the Frozen Man. We called him a tall whiskey a day. He worked at the weather station. We did this because he was a good man with a lot of humour who could drink a whole bottle of whiskey a day and still do a good job at the weather station. I was in Greenland back then, in the early 80s, working as a carpenter. This story takes place on one particular day where Tall Whiskey was supposed to be travelling back home to Denmark. Martin and I had been cleaning after a painting job, and we were driving the trash to Dumpen. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it like Dumpen or Dumpen?
Dumpen, like it's I think I mean I'm actually not an expert on this because I didn't think so. I think Dumpen, like I think that's
okay.
Dumpen.
I'll go with Dumpen.
we can together disagree that that's
Okay. To Dumpen, the junkyard. It was basically just a big hole filled with trash. They would set it on fire or simply cover it with dirt. It was early morning, still night, and about 30 degrees below 0 Celsius. We were driving back toward the barracks. It was the last barracks before the ice cape. The thin winter daylight was starting to break through the night. We had been back and forth to Dumpen a couple of times this morning, but it was first now, with the grey morning light, that we could see a car with an open door at the bottom of the children's skiing slope. The slope stretched from the top where Tall Whiskey lived and down to the bottom where the Americans had their barracks. It was Martin who saw the car first. Someone's had a car accident down the ski slope, he said, and then we hurried to help. When we arrived at the car, the door to the driver's seat was open, a glove was lying on the ground, and we could see a man lying on his stomach a few meters up the ski slope. The slope was all hardened and slippery from the kids playing. He had tried walking up the slope, even though the American barracks was only about 100 meters from his car. I walked towards the man lying in the frozen snow. He was wearing jeans, thin shoes, a nylon jacket, and a shirt. Nylon freezes to the skin when it's something like -30. He was not dressed as a person who lived in Greenland, but as someone would dress on a spring day in Denmark. I put a hand on his shoulder to turn him around. He was stuck at first, but with a firm pull I got him turned around. Or most of him. His shirt had been open, and his chest skin was frozen to the skiing slope. His eyes were frozen, and his mouth was open. Where his front teeth would normally have been, there were instead 2 icicles of blood. He looked a bit like Dracula. You could smell the alcohol in him, even through the cold frozen air. Martin and I called the Baltic Sea barber Babbe. He was the doctor. His first reaction was that we should have tried first aid, checked if there was a pulse or if his hips could move. I told the Baltic Sea barber that the man was deep frozen and dead for sure. Also, I did not really want to check one more time, as the man looked quite terrifying. It was on the day where a Tall Whiskey a day was supposed to leave and go home to his wife in Denmark. Instead, Martin and I would spend the afternoon building him a box for his last journey. It would take a couple of months before he would be back in Denmark, as dead people travelled by boat and not plane. It was still winter, and a couple of months before the first ship from Copenhagen would arrive. It was a different life there. We have all done stupid things drunk, biking home or similar. But accidents like this can take such a quick turn for the worse when it's 30 degrees below 0 outside. Had it happened back home in Denmark, he would have just left the car and walked the last 500 meters home. So yeah, just one bottle for that day, but it's a hell of a bottle.
Yes. Yeah, sake of a story. Okay, yeah.
So I think I'm gonna, yeah, like I said, I think that's good for one session.
Awesome. I mean, it was. Thanks so much for playing it, and thanks for having me on to talk about it. It's been really fun just hanging out and just chatting.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I absolutely didn't think this through first, but before. But like, are you like willing to do multiple, to like be here for multiple parts? Are you able?
If able, like with looking at the dates and times worked up, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I mean, I would. It would be really sweet to go through the whole game together. I just don't know what your logistics are like.
No, I mean, like if it's possible, then absolutely. We
Awesome.
can work out days. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, if we can make it roughly weekly, that would be amazing to do.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Awesome. Well, that's day 1 for us, but day 3 or so for Frigg of Welcome to Elk.
Yes.
All right, sweet.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, thanks very much, Murray. This, like you said, this is really fun to do. I'm really glad
awesome.
to have you on here.
I had loads of fun. It's been really nice just chatting and hanging out.
Sick. All right. I'll see you in roughly a week, hopefully. We'll work things out.
We'll work it out.
Nice.
Great.
All right, so bye-bye.
Yeah, bye for now.